Welcome to the G5 Hive in our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be heading over to the Mid-American Conference for some MACtion, taking a look at the Northern Illinois Huskies, who finished 8-5 last season and capped off their season with a win in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. They wrapped up their 2025 spring practice with their spring game on April 26th. We have two special guests joining us today. Our first guest is a sports editor and covers the Northern Illinois Huskies for the Daily Chronicle. He is Eddie Carifio. Eddie can be found on X at Husky Wire. Our next guest is a redshirt senior sports reporter at Northern Illinois for the Northern Star. He is Skyler Kisellus. Skyler can be found on X at Skyler Kisellus. Eddie, Skyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Pleasure to be on here.
Well, we're glad to have you, Eddie. Welcome back. For those turning into the G5 Hive for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been covering Northern Illinois athletics?
But I'm the sports editor at Daily Chronicle. I've been covering NIU as the full-time beat writer since 2020, but I've been out here since 2014 covering the team. More limited capacity back then before taking over the beat writer position during the pandemic.
Well, Skyler, first off, congratulations on being awarded the Northern Star Most Dedicated Staffer. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became interested in sports journalism, and how long you've been covering Northern Illinois athletics?
Yeah, sure. As you just said, my name is Skyler Kisellus. I'm going to be a fifth-year senior here at NIU coming up. It will be my last year covering NIU athletics. I've been doing journalism since, I guess you could say, my high school days in Florida. Took a few years off, decided when I came to NIU, why not? And then here I am, and this will be my fifth year coming up covering NIU sports. So it's been a fun ride.
Well, for those not familiar with Northern Illinois' offensive style, how would you describe it?
So as far as our offensive style goes, there's the thing you have to consider there is that they have a new offensive coordinator this year, Quinn Sanders. He was the head coach over at Charleston in Division II. From what I've been able to gather from this offense, it's going to be a lot faster than years prior. You're going to see a lot more. This team has leaned on the run game heavily since Hammock took over, but I think we're going to see a special emphasis on that this year. I think you're going to see some more quick passes coming up, and this is an offense that's when I've talked to Josh Holz, the starting quarterback, he says it's one that's given him more chances to audible and more chances to make changes at the line of scrimmage. So I think it's one that's a lot more adaptable than we've seen in years prior.
Yeah, you're going to see an offense that looks a lot more modern than their past offenses. They're still going to run the ball. They're still NIU. There's still obviously a lot of talent at running back. And honestly, I think they're going to find more ways to even run the ball out of this offense with more weapons and more, like Skyler said, quick stuff. So I think it's going to be like a blend of a more modern offense still with that running sensibility that, Hammock definitely wants to bring to the table.
Well, let's get to the position where it all starts on offense, and that's the quarterback. For the second straight season, the Huskies will be searching for their starting quarterback. 2024 star Ethan Hampton is off to Illinois. The Huskies bring back Josh Hoist and Jalen MACtion as two guys who saw playing time in 2024. The staff also brought in Jackson Proctor from Dartmouth after the spring. Hoist had a solid outing on the bowl game as he was 18 for 30 passing for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also added 65 yards on the ground. Is it safe to say Josh Hoist is the quarterback one heading into 2025 for the Huskies?
I'd say so. I mean, Josh Hoist, he started 3 games last season and did lead NIU to that bowl game victory in Idaho. I mean, and throughout the spring, he's been the clear-cut starter. I mean, Jalen MACtion did push him throughout spring, but, after everything was said and done, it looks like it's going to be his job to lose. I mean, he's got really good dual threat ability, and with 3 years of experience coming up in this offense, I think he's the clear-cut for the job.
Yeah, it's absolutely Holst's here to lose sort of thing. And I definitely think, this new offense, I think, is he is an awesome fit for what I think they're trying to do on this offense with a lot more RPO style stuff. Might be a little bit more down that road. Like I said, a little more modern because we have not seen that out of NIU, despite the fact that they've had the personnel to maybe pull it off. I know it wasn't exactly a mobile quarterback there with old E-Mobile. Ethan Hampton, but they still had the personnel that they maybe could have paid it off. I think we'll see, because a lot of times Hammock does like to misdirect, does like to play a lot of stuff close to the vest, but he's been talking about the more and the offensive coordinator specifically has been talking a lot more in Holst about this more open or fast-paced RPO style offense. And if that is what it is, then Holst is obviously a really good dude to run it.
For those not familiar with Josh Holst's game, how would you guys describe it?
As far as Josh Holst goes, I mean, he's about as much of a dual threat quarterback as we've had since Rocky Lombardi was gracing the uniform. I mean, he doesn't have an absolute cannon of an arm. He's not the one who's going to take deep shots over and over. But I mean, when he makes a deep ball, there's a good chance he's going to connect. And I feel like we're going to see a lot more mobility from him in that quarterback position, more than we did so with E-Mobile, as Ed put it. And I think we're going to see him get involved a lot in the running game.
Yeah, I think that's going to be his biggest asset. I think we'll get into the wide receiver talk later here in a second, but I definitely think Holt's biggest weapon is going to be the biggest asset he's going to bring to the table is going to be his legs, and that's what's going to help them the most.
Do you think his mobility is what makes him the best candidate to lead this quarterback room in 2025?
I think it's one of the things that makes him a good starting candidate, but I think it's more so his experience in the offense, or more his experience at the school rather, because obviously this is a new offense. But his experience with the team, his experience with the coaching staff, I think that was a big part in him, being the option there. Just as it was with Ethan Hampton last year, he was the veteran going in. He got the nod, and I think his mobility only just bolsters his case.
And his leadership, I think, is also a big part of that. The offshoot from what Skyler was talking about. That's something. I'm trying to think the phrase Hammock is an alpha. I'm pretty sure Hammock refers to him as an alpha all the time. They really like his leadership, especially as developed here over the last couple of years. He's going into his I wish I had a functioning brain. He's a sophomore, the redshirt sophomore this year, right? I want to say, or is it actually his junior year? But it's 3 years with the program either way, and it's not. That's usually when you make the leap, especially in the leadership department. And from everything the coaches have said, he has definitely done that.
All right, moving on to the running game. When Ontario Brown was healthy, the Huskies had a nice 1-2 punch with him and Gavin Williams. However, both have now graduated. When Brown had to miss some games, the world was introduced to Telly Johnson Jr., Johnson, Jalen Pohl, Justin Lynch, Amir Smith, all took snaps for the Huskies last season and return here in 2025. I know it's tough to gauge running back performances in the spring, but how did this room look in the spring?
I think this room looked really good, actually. I mean, I know heading into spring, Hammock said there were 3 guys he thinks could be big contributors for this program. And then after spring is clear, it was Telly Johnson Jr., Jalen Poe, and Romello Ware as well. He's gotten involved a lot. And then obviously some other names I want to throw out there: Amir Smith, Elijah Porter. That is some good depth options you're going to have in that room. And throughout spring, I mean, you could tell, they were the best unit on the field for the offense.
Yeah, you said it's hard to gauge during the spring. It's a lot easier to gauge for NIU than it is for other schools for what their running game looks like in the spring. Because, I mean, you cannot undersell the commitment Hammock has to the running game. And that is kind of one of the exciting things about this year coming up, is that they can actually, instead of running that, pro style or that 1990s pro style offense that they're running, and to see that upgraded into, a more modern run first offense. But yeah, Poe's probably going to be the dude. I mean, it is deep, but they tend to, Hammock tends to have the dude he likes. And I think we're going to, or not Poe, I'm sorry, Telly Johnson. I think Telly Johnson's going to be the dude. Hammock likes, having that dude, having that one guy. And I think Johnson's the dude this year. And the other guys will get carries and get, there probably will be a second back, a third down back, a la Gavin Williams. Hard to get a handle on who that would be. Poe's probably the smart money. And I think you got to factor in the fact that they're going to get a lot more production out of the quarterback running the ball this year too. So I do think it'll end up being the split of carries this year is going to look a lot like it has in the past, like it did last year, with just Johnson in that in Tario Brown role.
So we talked about, Johnson and Poe. Can you guys describe, what they do best and how they'll be utilized in this offense? You talked about a 1-2 punch of probably Telly, Johnson, and Poe, but can you tell us a little bit more about where they excel and some of the other guys that we're going to see get touches here?
I think I can take Johnson, and you want to take Poe. I mean, with Johnson, he's got a good ball carrier vision, in my opinion. I mean, he's a really good runner. He's really able to find the gaps fairly easily. And when he takes off, I mean, it's going to be hard to catch. I mean, he may not look like the fastest back in the world, but I mean, he's got wheels when he wants to turn them on, and he'll be gone. And I think he's going to be basically, like Ed said, he's going to be a next Ontario Brown. And now there's even more support for that, seeing he's now got his old jersey number 1.
Yeah, and Hammock said he didn't give that number away, just all willy-nilly. So, no, when you get Poe and Skyler, again, you can jump in if I biff some of this. But if I'm remembering correctly, he's a little more of a speed guy than Telly is. So, again, it's that nice compliment to him when they do need him in different situations. So I definitely yeah, and again, don't sleep on Holst as the third guy there. The other guys, it's been hard kind of to see, although they list a bunch at running back, but interestingly, Justin Lynch has been listed there for. We're pretty sure he's a wide receiver. Yeah. I mean, they lined him up at wide receiver constantly, usually split. He did everything wide receivers did. It was really interesting to see that usage for him. I'm sure we'll get into that more in a minute, but with all these guys, I know that's a name people cling to when you see Lynch and you think NIU, obviously, but I'm pretty sure this is last year. This is his redshirt senior year. So is going to be yet a different role for him on this team.
And I know he was added after the spring, but I kind of wanted to ask and make other people aware, but they also added leading rusher from Division II and Siobhan Wright from Charleston. What should we make of this addition? Is this more of a in the future, or hey, we need a next man up? You can pop in there.
I think he's going to be a guy who makes an immediate impact. I think he's a senior or a redshirt senior, so he doesn't have a lot of time left. I mean, I think it's a very valuable addition because we mentioned all these other backs. We mentioned the Tellys, we mentioned the Jalen's, we mentioned the Romellos. I mean, this is a guy that Quinn Sanders knows by heart. He coached this guy at Charleston, and that man was, not to mince words, he was a beast at Charleston. And I think just adding him into the lineup is really going to make this running back room a four-headed monster, to be frank.
I think it's what we've seen Hammock try to do whenever he can is just load up running backs. And I think in this day and age in 2025, it's not just about the death or the injury prevention. It is about, protecting yourself from the portal, and making sure that you have enough guys and you can build the relationship with enough guys. Some are going to leave. It's just the way it is. So this way you have a balance, young guys, old guys, protect yourself from injuries. But it's definitely, I think, a portal insurance type move.
All right. Who do we see get the first carry against Holy Cross?
I'm going to go with who Ed said earlier, Telly Johnson. I mean, he seems to be Hammock's guy after spring. I mean, I think he's more than earned that job, especially with what he did in those last 5 games of last season. So I think RB1 is going to be the easy ride in Telly Johnson Jr.
The question wasn't who RB1 was. The question was first carry. I'm going out there. I am saying Holst. I'm buying into the RPO. I guess I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, or I'm buying the misdirect Hammock selling. I'm saying it's going to be Holst for a 17-yard off the option misdirect play. I'm going to say up the right side.
I'm going to hold you to that.
All right, I am writing all of this down. Here we can capture this. 17 yards off the right side. Got it.
Yeah.
If we're able to predict that here in late May or early June, like you guys need to give us the lottery numbers.
All right. Well, since Ed made a prediction, I'm saying Telly Johnson's going to get the first carry. It's going to be 6 yards up the middle.
Yeah, that's old NIU, man.
I mean, hey, they might try to throw us off. I'm just saying.
Because that's the first down run, obviously, is the especially up the middle, especially is definitely what NIU has done for the last going on 7 years now with Thomas Hammock. So
Man,
that's old NIU, Skyler.
Hey, because we could be first down pass, second down run. They might switch it up now.
Well, let's talking of the path. Let's move over to the wide receiver room. Similar to 2024, this receiving unit will be looking to replace their top 2 wideouts again. Trayvon Rudolph is now at Toledo, while Cam Thompson is off to Mississippi State. The Huskies also graduated. Andrew McElroy and 4 others have transferred out of this room. That means Dane Partridge's 20 receptions, 238 yards in 2024 will be the most returning for the wide receivers here in 2025. How did the wide receivers look in the spring?
As far as receivers go, I mean, this looked like a pretty solid unit, especially when you consider all they lost. I mean, Dane, he still looks very fast. He's going to be the starting slot option going in. And then looking at the other receivers, I mean, I think you're going to have Gary Givens in third. I think he's going to be their Z receiver. And then you got returner LaDon Bryant, the X. I mean, all 3 of them have looked very impressive. I noticed that Holst had a lot of rapport and chemistry going with Givens. And, even behind them, Ricky Taylor Jr., he was a walk-on going into spring. He was awarded a scholarship around 2/3 of the way through. And I think he could be a sneaky option to, get some catches at the X spot.
I don't have a feel on this wide receiver. There's a lot of positions I don't have a feel on, but this wide receiver group leads the way. If it's 15 guys with 20 catches each at the end of the year, that's my best guess. There is no standout, or there's no one that's separated themselves yet, at least in this group. Skyler touched on some guys that may, but I mean, that Hammock's traditionally like spreading the ball around when they've passed it anyway. So I don't think I'm exaggerating by much when I say I think 15 guys end up with 20 catches each this year.
I agree. They're going to spread that ball out around quite a bit with the receivers they have.
Is there one guy, if there was one guy that kind of would step up and lead this wide receiver room in 2025, who do you think that might be?
I'm going to do a little bit of a sneaky pick. I want to say Gary Givens. I mean, he was quite the standout of Valpo, and, with the chemistry he's already built with Holst. I mean, in the spring game, I think they had like a 67, 68-yard touchdown connection. So, I mean, going into that, I think what they can do, I think it's going to be not what you expect. Someone might say Dane Partridge, and I fully expect he can be a very good asset for this offense. But just keep an eye on number 7.
I'm going to say Dane Partridge. I think, and I don't know why I'm setting myself up to say his name, but Georgie boy, George Diampalis, I think could be in play to maybe get a little more in a possession type role, and in a leadership type role. But I mean, Partridge has been here. Partridge is, I think, if there was someone that was going to emerge and lead that group, I think it's probably him. But I mean, roll your 20-sided die,
If you were to describe how the tight ends get utilized in this offense to somebody who has never caught a Huskies game, how would you describe it?
As far as the tight ends go, it's kind of hard to get feel on going into this season because of this new scheme. I mean, seasons past they've gotten them they were a very balanced unit. I mean, you definitely go out to catch a pass whenever any one of those guys go ahead and do it. But they were also very talented run blockers as well. I mean, and then looking at this new unit, I mean, you have Jake Applegate, looks to be the lead guy with Grayson Barnes gone, and Jason Fowler is a really young guy who's going to get plenty of snaps at a tight end number 2 role. But it's really just take your guess and see what kind of happens, because that is a unit I'm probably the least sure of, because there's not big sample size there.
Yeah, my guess is it's probably going to be more blocking this year. I mean, Barnes he was technically a tight end, but they didn't use him a lot as a tight end. If you just were looking at him, how they used him on the field, you would think receiver. But yeah, I think this year the tight ends is going to be a lot more blocking. Applegate was very highly touted coming out of high school a couple years ago. This is redshirt freshman year, I want to say. But yeah, you could have hopped in, Skyler. It's fine. But yeah, no, it's I think there are more blockers. And Applegate's a huge guy, and that's right up his alley. So I do think it'll be a little more for blocking. Yeah, I think that's more going to be the type of usage this year, which I know is weird in a more up-paced stuff. But like we said, it's still NIU, and it's still a Thomas Hammock offense.
Well, this offensive line will get a facelift here in 2025. Between graduation and the portal, the Huskies will need to replace 6 players. They will be looking to replace their entire starting offensive line, with the exception of left tackle Evan Malcor. Losing first-team all-conference J.J. Lippe to graduation is an obvious big hit for this team. The staff brought in 1 transfer from Wayne State after the spring, so I assume this means the staff likes the group of guys they already have in the building. How did the offensive line kind of shape up this spring?
I think the offensive line shaped up very well. I mean, you have a lot of guys. Like, even though they weren't starters last year, you have a lot of guys you can definitely plug and play for starting positions. I mean, for the starting line, obviously you have a Malcor returns at left tackle, left guard Jacob Welch could also be Lane Mansmith. There's a little bit of a guard battle there, but we'll kind of see what happens in fall camp. Center for the time being is Luke Scartweed, but we're going to see how Aiden Tweedy stacks up there. Abiathar Curry on the right guard, then the right tackle. Once he's back from his injury later this summer, it's going to be Tommy Posh. He was out for all spring. What looks like, I forget which leg it was, but he had a brace on his leg, so we didn't get to see him compete there.
Yeah, the line. I still think there's probably going to be something happening. If NIU's making another addition at some point, it's probably coming in through. It's probably going to be an offensive lineman. But yeah, no. Even though it is only Malcor, there's a lot of experience, especially Pashcott. I think a lot of starting time. I know Curry saw a lot of action last year, if I'm remembering right. So there's still some experience there. And if you were going through a overhaul anyway, you might as well do it when you're installing a new offense. So. Given
the overhaul of the offense, what do you think the expectations are of this room? Do you think they're, going to be just as adept at run blocking as they have been in the past or past Hammock teams?
I think they'll be up there. I don't think it's going to be as good as last year's line. I think there might just be a notch down, because obviously this is a new unit that's kind of got to get used to each other, because the last line we had, those are guys who had play alongside each other for years and years. Now we have a bit of a revamped line. So if they do live up to that same standard as last year, it'll be a very pleasant surprise. But I mean, still, this is a team that can definitely a line that can definitely hold its own.
Yeah, the line will be fine. Like Skyler said, it's not going to, because it was a very good line. It was an excellent line last year. So it's going to be, now a very good line this year. So, it's going to be something of a drop off. Although, again, I think that's just more going to be the experience issue than adjusting to the new offense, to be honest.
Well, given the lack of, I guess, experience in terms of, guys starting, I assume I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Who does this line look to kind of as their leader?
Easy answer. Just as you said, it's going to be Evan Malcor. This is going to be his second season as a starting left tackle, or second as a full-time starting left tackle, I'd rather put it. I mean, I've talked to Coach Meadows about Evan. I've talked to Evan myself. I mean, he is definitely he's not too outspoken from what I understand, but he's definitely the guy that everyone looks up to who leads by example. I mean, he's obviously got the experience with him, and I think everyone just looks to, maintain the standard he has. And obviously him being the left tackle, being the blind side protector, that only makes it a bigger responsibility for him. And I think he's held that up quite well.
Yeah, same. He hit it all there.
Well, Skyler, if you had to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
I'm going to go, this is going to sound like an easy answer, but I got to say Telly Johnson Jr. I mean, we just saw the raw talent he had on the field last season. And I think now that he's going to be the number one back, and it's going to be a crowded running back room. I'll give you that. But I think he's got a lot of talent. He can be an all-MAC player by the end of the season. I mean, he's the running back that came at the right time, especially now that Ontario and Gavin are gone. He is probably the best solution we have at running back, and I think he's going to have a very high ceiling going into
Eddie?
Yeah, I would just argue that that's not really a breakout because we've seen what he could do. That would be the only reason I wasn't actually thinking Telly. But, Telly is going to have a huge year, and with Skyler 100% on that. Although I think it's someone who showed flashes last year. I'm going with Holst. I mean, I know I'm sounding like a one-trick pony with the new offense, but I really think if this offense, and from the limited amount of it we saw during the spring game, I think Holst has the means to have a really breakout year, both with his legs and with his arm, to multiple different guys. I think the offensive line will provide more than sufficient blocking for him. Obviously, they've got some options in the run game to take some of the pressure off him. I think he's set up to have one of the best years, maybe if not this year, then next year, for one of the best years that we've seen from a quarterback at NIU for a while.
Well, moving over to the defensive side of things, for those not familiar with the Huskies' defensive scheme, how would you describe it?
So for the defensive scheme in years past, especially under their former DC, Nick Benedetto, they ran a 4-2-5. And obviously last year they were one of the best defenses in the group of five, one of the best in the country at what they did. But obviously now there's a new DC on the staff. That's going to be Rob Harley from Arkansas State. I believe he runs the same 4-2-5 defensive scheme. But as far as, what we're going to expect, I think this is a defense that's going to be a lot more oriented on takeaways than years past. I mean, don't get me wrong. Last year's defense was all about, getting the ball to the offense. But with this new heat mantra they've got going on this year under Harley, I think you're going to see a lot of attempts to, get that ball out.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the focal point for a couple of years. For as good as the defense has been, not only last year, but for the couple of years behind it, they just don't force a lot of turnovers. I mean, if there was a weakness in this defense, I mean, that's more or less was it last year. And like I said, a couple of years before. So we'll see if the new coordinator does the trick. We'll see if the new, like I said, lots of different acronyms and mantras and stuff like that. I think they renamed takeaways like get backs or something like that, because treating the ball that it's theirs in the first place. So they're doing lots of little stuff like that to try to get this last piece of the puzzle in place. Although, as we're about to talk about, there's a lot of new pieces to this puzzle, a lot of new players, a lot of new faces on this defense this year.
Like you said, there's a lot of new faces all over the defense, but we'll start with the guys up front along that defensive line. 8 of 16 guys who took a snap for the Huskies defensive line in 2024 are now gone, whether it's by graduation or the portal, 3 of which went to the P4. Breaking it down further, the Huskies will be looking to replace a lot of on the interior, none bigger than first-team all-conference defensive tackle Devontae O'Malley, who has graduated. The line's strength kind of looks like it could be on the edge as it returns Roy Williams, Jelani Williams, Pierce Opong, and Ivan Davis. How did that defensive line look and come together in the spring?
That defensive line is probably going to be my pick for the most strongest unit on that defense, even on the team. I mean, Roy Williams and Jelani Williams being your book guns on your defensive line only makes your line that much better. But I mean, on the interior, yes, you did lose some talent there. I think Mark Hensley, he's probably going to be DT1 going into the fall, but he's going to be he's going to be a more than adequate replacement for O'Malley and Gil Howard. And then Reggie Jean next to him, I think he's going to be solid. I still can't really get a gauge on what he's going to be, but I mean, still with his defensive line, Roy Williams, he is scary. And I think he's going to be the best defensive player on this team. July Williams is also more than talented. And the best defensive line combination from when I did a film review with Hammock back about, I want to say, a month and a half ago, he's basically, it seems like the best combination you can have is have Jelani kick inside with Mark Hensley, and have Devontae Murray, the transfer from UT Martin, and Roy Williams on the edge. That's going to be the best combo you can get on that front four.
Yeah, I know Skyler obviously hit a ton of stuff there. That's why I was letting him go first, because he is plugged in. He did that film session, by the way. Sorry for derailing this with compliments, but that was an excellent thing you did there.
Thank you.
Well, who in this room do you feel is ready to kind of make that jump here in 2025?
In the defensive line room, the jump, I mean,
yeah.
I want to say it's going to be Mark Hensley, because we've already seen what Roy and Jelani can do. We know the talent they have. I mean, Mark's the guy who was stuck behind, buried in the depth chart. I mean, there was Skyler Howard, you had Kate Haberman, Devon Taylor Jr., O'Malley. But now that he's the guy going in after all those graduations, I think we're going to really see what he can do on that defensive line.
I know he's a little buried this year, but I think it's Opon. I think he's he's been here so long. He's made plays whenever he's been in there. I think he's going to have, now is the third guy instead of the fourth or fifth guy. I think I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to turn a lot of heads, and I think by the end of the year you're going to see his numbers be, oh wait, this guy wasn't the starter. So I think he's probably going to be the breakout guy. If it's not Hensley, because obviously Hensley's going to have a lot of experience, a lot of opportunities, let's say that way. So Skyler, again, hit that nail on the head real well.
Well, the Huskies will need to figure out who their linebackers will be this season, as they lost both starters, and Jaden Dolphin and Southeast Missouri transfer Christian Furman. But the Huskies returned some guys who saw meaningful snaps a season ago, and Jake Gassaway and Quinn Erweiler. How did the linebackers look to spring, and did anyone kind of stand out for you?
To be honest, the linebacker group was pretty difficult to assess, because it seemed like they rotated them out quite a bit. I mean, obviously you name those top four guys, but then you have KJ McCray and you have TDBK as well in that linebacker room as far as the depth goes. And the starters, like I said, it's really hard to tell, but if I had to give you an educated guess right now, Mark Preto is a guy that Hammock has spoken quite highly of this spring. So I think he's going to be able to, step into that role after transferring in from Fordham last season. And then next to him, I think it's either going to be Quinn Erweiler or Danny Cronin, but I'm going to give it to Quinn since he's got experience here. And I will say this, that guy is built. He is a linebacker for sure.
Yeah, the neck rolls, to borrow a phrase from a colleague. But Mark Preto, he kind of was the closest one I remember for saying, oh, hey, there's a play. Because like Skyler said, they were rotating them out with the line as flashy as it was. And obviously, cornerbacks, one's getting all the interceptions when you're focused on turnovers and that sort of thing. Linebackers, kind of got there was a lot of question marks, I think, still about this group, at least from what they're presenting to the public.
Well, in 2024, we saw several guys return for the secondary. 2025, a different story. Northern Illinois loses 10 guys via graduation or the transfer portal. This room will lean a lot on the experience of cornerback Jacob Finley here in 2025, but we'll look to find another starting corner, and they will need to find someone to replace first-team all-conference safety Nate Vacarsel. What should we expect from this defensive backfield in 2025?
I think for as far as the defensive backfield goes, I think you're just going to see, obviously, a lot of new faces. You have to replace both starting safeties. You got to replace all but one of your starting corners. But I think this is a unit that can lock some opposing offenses down. I mean, yes, Jacob Finley is the only returning starter. I mean, looking at the safety room, Cyrus McGarrell, Muhammad Jameh, Jasper Beeler, Those are all pretty experienced guys, especially those first two. They've been in the system for quite a while. They're both redshirt seniors. And I think Muhammad Jameh is going to be taking the starting strong safety role. Then Jasper Beeler coming in from Saginaw Valley State. He's going to slide into the free. And he made quite a few plays in the spring, and Hammock outlined what he's able to do, as well as Davion Reynolds. He's a very young corner from Zion, Illinois. I think he's going to be a candidate to start opposite Finley at cornerback. But, look at what they did in spring. I think this is a unit. Well, it's similar to the offensive line from last year to this year. Last year's secondary was really good. This year's secondary is going to be pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, I think secondary is also I might even be a hair above pretty. I really like the secondary this year. It's the question is, can they get the turnover? Can they turn the PBUs into INTs? And that's the biggest question around this group. I really think Muhammad Jameh is the key to this whole puzzle for them. He's been with them a while, and if he can make the leap and give them the depth as that third guy and rotating in, and like I said, get to that level that they've kind of been expecting him to have been at the last couple of years, I really think this could be a lot better than the very good we're talking about right here. I think also Jacob Finley's in that boat at corner too. I think if he's able to make that jump like they have been expecting him to and need him to, then I think this is a really good secondary.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Eddie right there. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I was just going to mention. So Eddie mentioned Muhammad Jameh he's got to step up to be that impact player. Who would you have other than Finley?
Other than Finley, I'm going to say what Eddie said, Muhammad Jameh. He's the clear leader in the secondary. I mean, I will say he is also one to throw out a lot of banter, so he does know how to get the offensive guys riled up quite a bit. But yeah, Muhammad Jameh, he's going to be a name that you're going to recognize come this fall. I mean, he's a very talented safety, and he knows how to make plays. He knows how to shut players down. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do now that he's going to be the guy, one of the guys at safety rather than a reserve or rotational role now.
Well, with all these new faces, there's a lot of room for opportunity here, and in terms of who might break out, and you guys see Northern Illinois every day, and so your breakout might be different than the average college football fan. Seeing someone or noticing someone for their first time. But who do you have for a defensive player to break out here in 2025?
As far as defense player to break out, I'm going to give that nod to Jacob Finley because for Finley, he started the last few games. He didn't start every game last season at corner. So heading into another season for him, I think now that he's going to be CB1 for the Huskies, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities, and I think he's going to be an all-conference player because he's got talent to keep up with some very talented receivers. So now that he's going to have a chance to really shine, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to produce. And I think he's going to be one of our best players on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we've touched on a lot of big ones here with Jameh and then the dudes along the line. But linebacker, there's going to be a linebacker with 90 to 100 tackles, because that's just what college football is these days. I'm going out there on a limb, and I'm going to go Erweiler. I mean, he's put in the time with his program. He is a local kid or local guy, I guess, from, I get it mixed up if it's Geneva or Batavia. I want to say it's Batavia, but he's whatever European named one, but he's he's put in the dues, and there's going to be production on a linebacker spot just by the nature of the beast. So I'm going with Erweiler if we're looking for kind of a breakout guy.
Well, let's move over to the special teams. How are they looking, and are there any concerns heading into the season?
I know I said you go first every time. I'm going to say the concerns are all of them. Skyler, you want to? No, obviously, special teams was not great last year. So that's definitely been a focal point coming into this year. Obviously, that's the hardest thing to see. from spring practices. When you're looking at it, you just have what the coaches say to go on, and obviously coaches always say it's going to be improved. So we'll find out.
Yeah, as Eddie mentioned, that special teams unit, it was not stellar last year. I mean, outside of what they did at Notre Dame, I mean, no one's going to forget that anytime soon. But I mean, now that you've rehauled the entire unit, I mean, I expect it to be better this year, especially a kicker, Andrew Glass, the transfer from Kent State, very experienced guy. He's got a leg and he's got a rapport for accuracy. And I think back in the spring showcase, he had a 57-yarder. He did miss like a 62, but can't always hit a 62, of course. But I really like what Andrew Glass is going to bring to the table. Hammock says he's a guy that's going to win him games. Long snapper, we've got a battle between Quinn Kelly and Ross Pedro, both transfers that are new this year. I don't really have a gauge on who may have won or is going to win that battle, so that's one I'm waiting for fall to figure out. And punter, I do believe we're going to have a battle between Danny Vukovic. He's the returner from last year. He was Foley's backup, and now he was the only punter in the room after Gavin Myers hit the portal. And now we're bringing in a former punter's younger brother. Matt Ferentz played here a couple years back, and now his younger brother Jake is going to be joining as a true freshman in the fall. So I think we're going to see who can kind of win that battle to get the nod coming into 2025.
Now that spring practice is over, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning heading into 2025?
Most concerning right now, I've got to say it's going to be the tight end room. Obviously, losing Grayson Barnes to West Virginia was a major blow. I do have confidence in Applegate to be a suitable tight end one option, as well as Jason Fowler. But once again, that sample size is just not large. I hope they prove me wrong, frankly. And with the coaching thing too, they did lose Corey White to a D3 head coaching job earlier this offseason. So they've been kind of playing some staffers in there to kind of coach that unit up. So that's one I'm really going to wait and see on this season.
Yeah, the tight ends jump out from what from what Skyler was talking about. But again, in the end, I think there's enough guys that can catch the ball there. And I think they, especially with Applegate, can block, which is probably what they mainly need out of that. So that's why that's not like the number one concern for me. For me, despite me talking up Erweiler here literally 18 seconds ago, I'm going with that linebacker group. Just, concerned. It's a question mark. Like the wide receivers, it's just a group of a bunch of, a large group of talented guys that now are having the chance to prove themselves, but figuring out, okay, who's fitting in where and who the guy is, and all this stuff. I think in the linebacker situation, I think that's probably, for me, the biggest concern / question mark heading into this season, or heading into the fall practices, rather. Excuse me.
With those concerns, I guess, what do you think the best way for them to kind of address them is? Just getting guys more reps, getting more rotations, or?
Well, I should point out it's also a concern for me as a dude sitting here right now. I mean, I'm sure, obviously, Hammock and the staff, they know far, far more than I do, and
sure,
maybe just a little more than Skyler. But, I mean, things will start to shape up. I mean, obviously, it's a whole different world of college football these days. I mean, they're doing whatever they can legally do right now as we speak, and we'll continue to do all that through the summer and, into when fall starts. So internally, it may not be, that much of a concern, but, or if it is, it will be sorted out to the best they can by the time, like you said, the first game rolls around.
Yeah, Eddie hit the nail on the head there. I mean, obviously, I can say what's going to be concerned, what's not from my point of view, but I'm not Coach Hammock. I'm not the coaching staff. I mean, as far as, maybe, addressing those concerns, I mean, I think they've done all they can do for tight ends, at least. I know they had a guy from Princeton. I'm blanking on his name right now. But, I think they've got pieces where, they can, put something out for 2025. They'll have to anyway, of course. I mean, season's not going to stop. I mean, I think you got more than enough pieces there where you can last on what you have.
All right. Well, in today's age of NIL, revenue sharing, the transfer portal, as Eddie put it, what you can maybe legally do, how has that changed Northern Illinois' recruiting philosophy?
Well, I mean, Eddie hit it on the head earlier. I mean, this team recruits, to kind of be able to survive the portal because this team has, taken some major hits to the portal, especially these past 2 years. And I think now they're recruiting guys, they can feel safe with what they have on the table, even if guys go to those bigger schools like Texas Tech, Missouri, or anywhere else they might want to
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State times 3, yes.
Yeah, no, Hammock, I think's done as good a job, at least in these early days of the portal, as I think you can for, portal proofing the program. I think, it's kind of a double pronged approach of, bringing in duplicates, bringing in as much as you can. We'll see. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about the house settlement or who the heck knows what the house settlement is or any of that stuff. I know that's way over my mental capabilities, but with roster limits potentially coming in and everything, it's going to be a whole new changing landscape. Maybe by the time this even airs, it's going so quick with this house settlement thing. But like I said, it's a two-pronged approach of bringing in as much as you can. And then and this is where Hammock and the staff excels. I think best of all is not on the football field. I think it's in creating the relationships with the players and getting players to stay. And everyone's going to leave eventually because everyone's going to be chasing the money, as they should. The college players should be able to get more money from somewhere else, and earn what they deserve. And Hammock's at the point where he just tries to delay that. Like most other programs, Trayvon Rudolph would have left would have left the year before last. They got an extra year out of him. Most programs wouldn't have been able to keep Ontario Brown here the entire time. They did. So you could look at what goes away in the portal, but they've really done a good job of. I think Telly Johnson would have been gone from most programs of this level in the portal after last year. So I think that's really where Hammock portal proofs it, as I put it, is I think in building those relationships with the players and getting them maybe not to stay forever, but to at least stay maybe a year longer than they'd like, then couple that with recruiting in the younger guys behind them. So I think that's kind of been his approach to, the portal and whatnot.
I'm going to ask kind of a bad question because I'm going to ask two questions at once, but you talked about like kind of double dipping in the sense of getting like duplicates. Are they getting like a high school kid and then also like a transfer? And then also in that, do you notice when these P4 teams like pluck from the G5 that NIU's got accessibility to hire recruits out of high school or maybe JUCO kids that they're no longer having to compete with P4 guys from?
Well, I think it's, when I say duplicates, it's more like, I know he graduated, but look at the running back room with Ontario Brown. They had Telly Johnson locked, loaded, ready to go. And they got Poe behind him and they got Ware behind him, and they got those guys. Look at it on the D line, SKG. No, that's not his initial. Skyler Gill Howard. You look at him, even though he committed to staying and, that was the whole thing. And then he still ended up going to Mississippi State, but they had the pieces ready to go and they're still loaded on the outside there because the young, the power programs aren't recruiting the young guys off of there, though there's an asterisk to this, but they're not getting the young guys through the portal. They're getting the guys who are already proven themselves, and then those young guys and IU recruits fill the spots. The asterisk I brought up is because lots of programs do kind of, I guess it's technically legal, so maybe poaching's not the right word, but they do hone in on NIU recruits. Iowa State took a bunch. Iowa State took like 2 or 3 guys after they committed to NIU. They went and got them. So they're kind of like pre-portaling, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, these are all the things Hammock has to deal with. Every G5 or G6 coach has to deal with these days.
Yeah, find someone who looks at you like Iowa State looks at NIU recruits. But honestly, Eddie hit it right on the head. I mean, just ditto to what he said. I mean, this team does focus a lot on recruiting its ranks. I mean, obviously, they'll bring in those key pieces through the portal. I mean, a majority of this team is built through recruiting. I mean, that's the number one approach it seems to be for this team. And no matter how many guys they lose, it seems like they've always got someone ready and locked and load and ready to get on the field. So, I mean, I think they're equipped whether someone takes someone from the portal or not. It's just really the luck of the draw at this point.
So Justice asked what the most concerning position group was heading into 2025. I'm curious as to what's the main strength of this team heading into 2025.
Main strength, I'm going to go with the running back room. I mean, with the amount of talent you're going to have there, I mean, as well as, obviously, I'm going to say the whole entire running game. I want to say just running backs. Because you mentioned that Josh Schultz is going to be a threat to run at any given time. And so it's interesting what they might do with the receivers if they have them run some jet routes or something like that. But, I mean, I think the run game, they are going to be lethal on the ground, even in this new modern style offense.
Yeah, I could maybe get clever and talk about the D line behind that, but the running game is the strength of this team, 100%.
Well, there was some pretty big news this offseason with concerning Northern Illinois football, at least. What can you guys kind of tell us about the move to the Mountain West? Maybe what fans think, what you guys think, and what the plan is for the other sports.
Yeah, the reactions I've heard have been pretty mixed. Or obviously those be like, "Oh, why are we traveling all the way out to Hawaii?" Or why are we going? There's no mountains in the Cab or something like that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we can definitely play up to the snuff of the Mountain West, and the travel is not going to be as severe as they say it's going to be. And I think the revenue is always the biggest part of the equation here, especially with the way intercollegiate athletics is trending. I think that they're just kind of getting ahead of it before it gets out of hand and everyone's going to play reactionary. Now they're being proactive with it. And I think that, even with the travel, they're still going to save a lot of money and they're still going to make a lot of money from this new media deal that the Mountain West is going to have to negotiate coming up very soon. And as far as the other sports go, they are going to be going to Horizon League, except for wrestling and gymnastics, because the Horizon League does not offer those sports. But at the same time, NIU goes to the Mountain West for football. Everyone else is going to go to the Horizon League, and then it will be C'est La Vie, Mid-American Conference, pending the MAC's approval of wrestling and gymnastics application for affiliate membership.
Yeah, Skyler hit all that, but just the move does come about because the one thing I think worth pointing out, and he said it like a million times, and I can never remember all four prongs or whatever it is, three prongs that Frazier always talks about with why this move happened. A lot of it is because of the change in shape. It's because of the NIL money stuff. It is this house settlement is a big deal in AD world. I mean, I think, it's going to be a big deal to all of us here soon enough, once it's actually finalized and, it's been explained to all of us, like what it actually means. Yeah. But this house deal is a really big and scary thing to a lot of ADs with how that's going to change the football landscape. And Frazier just needed to do something to secure NIU's future. You see all these some Horizon League team just dropped baseball, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I know
Fort
Cleveland
Wayne.
State, was that?
Fort Wayne did, I think.
Yeah, Fort Wayne just dropped baseball. So there are going to be 5 teams next year for baseball before NIU ends up joining them next year. So that's what a lot of schools are doing to prepare, I guess, or for this next level, is to just drop programs. And that is something that absolutely Sean Frazier has said repeatedly he does not want to do. Typical Sean Frazier talk pretty much says like he won't, but I mean, at some point they may not have a choice, but he's doing everything he possibly can to keep them from dropping any athletics. And he thought this Mountain West / Horizon deal was the best for that.
When this deal happened, one thing I saw, I don't think either one of you guys wrote it. I don't remember who did it, but it kind of posed an interesting question. It was kind of talking about that they felt like part of the move was because of the midweek games. While the midweek, and their point was, while the midweek games is great from a TV standpoint, it's not great from a butt in the seat standpoint. And I'm just kind of interested to see what your guys' perspective on that is.
Yeah, I mean, with the midweek games, I mean, as you mentioned, it's great for TV. It's a little niche thing. Oh, Tuesday, Wednesday night game, no other teams playing. Why not watch MACtion? But, like a November weeknight in DeKalb or Kalamazoo or Muncie, they are cold, and no one wants to sit on a metal bleacher at 7 o'clock on a school night, to be frank. I mean, I think moving to the Mountain West, obviously, you eliminate that model. Now you get games on Friday nights. Now you get games on Saturday as college football is supposed to be played. And I think it's going to help a lot for attendance numbers because those have only gone down the more you've leaned harder into MACtion. So, I mean, this was basically a big call by the fans that seemed answered because now you don't have to wait till Tuesday night to watch NIU play Ball State in the Barn Burner.
Yeah, the biggest fans of MACtion are people who don't actually have to, who can just watch a game on a Tuesday night and not actually be in the stands or that sort of stuff. Those are the people who like MACtion. It's not, I think, a boots on the ground, so to speak, sort of fan base for it.
I mean, Eddie, you might have just nailed it on the head. I live here in Iowa, and I love MACtion, but with the fire on and whatnot, watching even better.
We'll let the Big Ten start playing on Tuesdays. If it's so great. You can have your Hawkeyes play Tuesday.
I don't know if it would change their offensive style or how many points they score anyways.
Good point.
So is there a portion of the schedule that you're really looking forward to, or is like a pivot point? Like, all right, if we're going to make a MAC championship, this is, the set of games that's really important to NIU.
I mean, I think your biggest stretch there is going to be right around the start of MAC play. You open MAC play against the Miami Redhawks. That's going to be our homecoming game. And DeQuan Finn is now back in the MAC. He's going to be the quarterback for the Redhawks going in next year. So I think getting a statement and finally getting our first Mallory Cup win right before we leave the MAC is going to be pivotal. And then 2 weeks later, you go to Athens, Ohio to meet the defending MAC champs in Ohio. We did not play them at all last year. I kind of wish we did. But, that's going to be a statement, too. If you can squeak out a victory there, then that shows that you're able to compete for a MAC title, especially in a league like this where we have a target on our backs this year because the rest of the MAC isn't too fond of us leaving them high and dry, I guess, is the best way to put it. So everyone wants to, especially drive us into a hole in the ground.
Yeah, those games are important. Something Skyler did mention that I don't understand that people are saying, and that there is this sense that NIU is like abandoning the MAC and leaving them high and dry. Let's point out that this schedule is right now. This is a 13-team conference, and NIU, they had this beautiful system where with these pods, and they got rid of the divisions, and there was this huge mathematical thing that they figured out to have this work for 12 teams, and then UMass joins, and it ruined everything. And so, but now when NIU's leaving, they can go back to that. It just seems to be better all the way around for the MAC if it's at 12 teams. It's better for the MAC all the way around. They're not coming all the way out to DeKalb now, especially when you add UMass to go with Buffalo and on the other East teams. I don't understand why there's this, like, the MAC schools feel, or the fans of the MAC schools at the very least feel abandoned or whatever. It doesn't track for me. It's like, you got your thing. You think NIU's making a mistake? Let them go make their mistake. You've got your league all set up, all nice.
Well, what does success look like here in 2025 for the Huskies?
Well, I think with the amount of overhaul you're going to do, I think success is getting maybe 8 wins. I think that's what you can call a successful season, especially after what you did last year. You still have some key pieces on this team, and I think you have the offense that can get you some places. So if you can squeak out, I mean, at least obviously you get a bowl game with 8 wins. But, I mean, if you're even in contention for a MAC title, maybe you don't go to Detroit. But getting at least close in your last season here, I think that's a statement you can walk out with and hold your head up high with.
I'm setting the bar a little higher than Skyler, actually, given everything we literally just talked about the MAC farewell tour. I think also not overlooking the fact that this is a team that under Hammock has only won one MAC championship. I think they got to get this one on the way. If they don't get one on the way out the door, I don't think internally they're going to be happy. I don't think fan base is going to be happy. I don't think anyone's going to want to label it a success. Short of that. So I think I'm not usually a fan of setting the bar like that high and everything, but I think given the circumstances of this year, I mean, that's, if you want to call it a success, I think, like I said, not only, I don't think it's a fan base thing. I don't think it's a player thing saying, oh yeah, we're going to win the national championship every year. I do think it's given everything, that they've kind of got to win the MAC if they want to call it, or at least get to the championship game, if not win it, on the way out the door, if you want to call this year a success.
Well, is there anything you want to share or think that we should know about this 2025 Northern Illinois Husky football team?
I mean, I think we covered just about everything. Obviously, 2025 is going to be very pivotal. You say goodbye to MACtion for probably the last time. I don't think we're going to do a third go around, in my personal opinion. But, we get one last crack at, 2 official rivalries and 1 unofficial rivalry in Toledo. And obviously, as Ed pointed out, the expectation is you win at the MAC title. I mean, 8 wins, that's, my standard here. I mean, if you do that, good, but you should be going for the title. You leave with one less trophy before you, head off to pursue your manifest destiny in the Mountain West.
I really hope that their offense does take the leap that they're talking to, or just the modernization, not even that the numbers are higher or lower or whatever. I just hope that it is a more modern looking offense going forward. Whatever it produces this year is maybe not as important as setting up, for future years, especially with a relatively young quarterback like Hulse that they hope they'll be able to keep. So I think that's probably, if you're looking at an angle to go out on, it's really hoping that offense, has the RPO element to it, has a quarterback that can take off for a 17-yard run up the right side on the first play of the season, that sort of thing.
Well, Eddie and Skyler, we want to thank you both for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share your knowledge and some great conversation. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on here. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, no, this was great, as always.
Well, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G55.